I've always been a history buff, especially local history, because if you don't know where your community has come from, it's hard to vision and say, well, this is the only thing we have is what we have right now. No, it took a lot to get us to where we are, but we also have to know where we came from before we can appreciate where we are and determine where we're going.
Nick, we've got a problem, maybe an opportunity. Some would see it as a good problem to have. Nassau County, population-wise, tourism-wise, everything has exploded. In the last few years, all the things that have happened, we've had a lot of people moving into the Northeast Florida area. Now, it's my understanding that Nassau County itself could double in residential population within the next 7 to 10 years, right? So in light of that, Nick, what is the importance of folks who are, maybe they've been here forever, maybe they're new to Nassau County, Amelia Island. What's the importance of them knowing and appreciating and then helping to preserve history in general, and then in particular, the local history of Amelia Island and Nassau County?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me today. And, we talk about it's exploding. Some would say it has already exploded. The bomb has gone off, but that's not the case. There are, well, for instance, Wildlight is expected to build 20,000 homes in the next 60 months. Now, if you do the math and you put three bodies per household, you're looking at 60,000 people. Our total population now, we're still considered a rural county because we're under 100,000.
Okay.
So we are going to almost double our total population within the next 60 months. And, the fear that I have looking at it, through the eyes of a lifelong native, I've never lived anywhere except Nassau County. And having come from government, I was 16 years, I was a county commissioner and Port Authority. My fear is the infrastructure. How are we going to handle all that? And I just hope that the powers to be that are in office now are looking at all that. And, if you own a business right now in Fernandina, there's nowhere to park. It's infrastructure. Yeah. You got to have it. It's more than just water and sewer. There's a lot more that goes along with it. But it's still, Chris, it's the most wonderful place out of all 67 counties in the state of Florida. I've always said, and I'll continue to say it today, Nassau County is the best, bar none. It's the best.
So where does the preservation of history play into that?
Well, I think it's important, to me. I've always been a history buff, especially local history, because if you don't know where your community has come from, it's hard to vision and say, well, this is the only thing we have is what we have right now. No, it took a lot to get us to where we are. But we also have to know where we came from before we can appreciate where we are and determine where we're going.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And, we have to preserve our history. That's a must. Without that, we really don't have anything. So for the newcomers, and this is the thing that, I always, when I'm doing a tour with Amelia Island Footprints, it's always the newcomer that's hungry. They want to know more. They want to know, tell me, what was it like?
Right.
What was here, along the waterfront? Tell me about the waterfront. Tell me about the shrimping industry. Tell me about what was being shipped out of Fernandina. What were the exports? What were the imports? I mean, David Yulee.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that, is so vital to where we are and where we're headed, where we're going.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, that's just the way I see it. I hope that kind of answered your question a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And we met 5 years ago, about this time,
About
5 years ago,
six now, I think.
early
Yeah.
2019.
Yeah.
The CVB, the Visitors Bureau, had contracted my
Mm-hmm.
company to produce a short film about shrimping industry and the shrimp festival. That's always,
Tourism. Yeah.
yeah, and tourism and
We
wild
met
caught
down at the
shrimp.
waterfront.
Yeah, we did, and we'll put a link to that piece in
Oh, good.
the description here. But yeah, so 6th-generation island native, 4th-generation wooden boat builder.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about growing up in Fernandina in the 1950s and 60s, and give us a flyover of growing up and all the changes. A flyover.
Yeah, a flyover.
A flyover.
Yeah, it'll have to be a flyover and a quick one at that. But growing up in Fernandina was wonderful. We didn't really have anything there, and I've always said probably in the 50s there probably wasn't 4,000 or 5,000 people on that island. And I tell the story about, we used to skip school in high school to go to Jacksonville, to go over here to Jacksonville, 44th and Main, to go to McDonald's to get French fries, McDonald's French fries. That tells you what we had. We didn't have anything. And we had one movie theater on the corner of 11th and Atlantic, and it showed the same movie sometimes, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, but it didn't matter. It was something to do. We didn't have a restaurant in every block. We didn't have, we had the sandbar, the original sandbar out at Amelia City. And, but the shrimping industry, we were in the 1800s, we were shipping longleaf yellow pine, turpentine, and indigo. We actually had indigo farms. And then in 1899, had a guy, Salicito Salvador, came here from Italy to start a fish company. And the one thing that he noticed when he got here was the abundance of shrimp. But shrimp was not an industry. Shrimp was not a business at that time.
Okay.
So he had a vision. I mean, he saw it as a business. He saw it as this needs to be capitalized on. There's got to be a way of doing this. So he sent for his two brother-in-laws, Andrew Poley and Salvador Versaggi came. And they teamed up with a friend of theirs who was already here, Joseph Giannino. And these were your four founding fathers. This was in 1899. And around 1901, 1902, somewhere along in there, Salvador Versaggi put a small one-cylinder engine on a rowboat, and they were experimenting with different kinds of small nets. And that revolutionized the industry. And then as the industry kept growing, the one thing they needed was boats. And then in 1912, my grandfather, Mike Tiliakis, came here from Columbus, Greece, and he started building boats. And then in 1941, my father came from Santorini, and I didn't know anything but boat building. I mean, every day I was at the boatyard. I was either at my grandfather's boatyard or my dad's boatyard, and that's all I knew was building boats. And then Dad died in '69. We had 3 boats under construction. I finished those 3, and we built 3 more. The last one was the Jetstream. It was launched in '73, and it's still fishing out of Fernandina now, But, it was there was so much. I mean, the industry was, the paper mills were there. Tourism was not anything to speak of. We had some families come from southeast Georgia every year, and they would rent some homes along the beach, you know, and they could, that was our tourism. I mean, it was nothing.
The 70s, 80s.
Oh, no, I'm
60s,
talking the
70s.
60s, yeah, 60s, 70s. I mean, you know, just didn't really have hardly anything. And
Still a secret.
oh yeah, it was still a secret. And I remember the JCs. My uncle was a member of the JCs, and you know, they did everything they could to, you know, get people to just recognize Amelia Island or recognize Nassau County, you know. And you know, you would drive to Yulee, it was a little 2-lane road, and, you know, you might pass 10 or 12 cars, and the funny part was you blew your horn at 5 or 6 of them because you knew them, and then you'd see them in the grocery store. It was like, you know, where were you going yesterday? And so everybody knew everybody, and if you did something wrong, somebody was going to call you out as a kid, so you had to be careful, you know. But it was a great place, wonderful place to grow up. And I left in '64 and went to the military, and that was the only time I ever lived anywhere other than Nassau County was my military time from '64 to '67.
Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. I'd do it again if I could.
Okay.
Too old now. Yeah, too old now.
So you've put your money where your mouth is. You have invested now. You're known locally as a historian. You have a heart for it. You care about preserving and promoting local history, particular the history of Fernandina and Amelia Island, in the shrimping industry. So you've been doing in your business now. You have presentations that you do for groups. You have now a driving tour, and you have a video series. Mm-hmm. So tell me about the first thing you've been doing for a while is the presentations. Give me a snapshot.
The snapshot on the presentations, I learned a long time ago, and when I say a long time ago, it's about 18, 19 years ago, I started doing some presentations for the museum. And in fact, I did all of the Rhodes Scholars when they came through. And but I put together a PowerPoint, really didn't know what I was doing, except I knew I had hundreds of photographs. So I put together a PowerPoint basically teaching the viewer how these boats are built, how they're constructed, from laying the keel, cutting the bow stem, the horn timber, the shaft logs, and putting the frames in, bending the ribs, to launching the boat. And it really, really went over. It still does to this day, you know. And then, thanks to you, you kept saying, we need to do a tour. We need to do a tour. We need to expand it a little bit. So, you know, it all made sense to me. So we invested in a 12-passenger van, and we got it all wrapped up, and, you know, we went through all the permitting and the insurance and yada, 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 and every yada has a price tag attached to it nowadays, but, you know, we got that going. And then as far as a historian, I love telling the story. My grandmother, when my grandfather got here in 1912, he met my grandmother who was from here.
Right.
And her genealogy goes back to the 1600s.
Wow.
So, you know, we've been around this area a long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
So what's it like to go on the tour?
Well, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people what better way to spend a morning or an afternoon than to get in an air-conditioned van, or on those rare occasions the heaters are going in the winter, and, you know, ride around in a pair of shorts and tell people about where you grew up and the history. I mean, it's wonderful, but, you know, for the newcomer, they're hungry. They want to know more. And for the old timers like me, they like to have their memories refreshed. And history will never, you can't eradicate history. You can't erase history. No matter how hard we try, you can't get rid of it. History is history.
Yep.
And most people realize it is the history that makes us what we are today. And I think the people that we've had, they appreciate it. We get great reviews. Everybody enjoys the tours. I enjoy giving them just as much as they enjoy hearing it.
What happens if we don't work hard to preserve and promote?
If we don't work hard,
especially local history.
If we don't work hard to, number one, preserve it, then you're just going to become just another community. And the history will go by the wayside. I know back when I was a county commissioner, I was in Tallahassee, and someone told me about I think it was the R.G. Gray building, and said downstairs was the history of, the Florida history of museum was downstairs in this building. And I went, and it was fascinating. But it dawned on me after I had spent an hour there, I didn't see any shrimp boats. I didn't see the word shrimp. I didn't see any boat building. I didn't see anything. So I got a hold of the curator, and we talked about it. And I haven't been back, but I've been told that all that now they've added a lot of stuff to that museum.
Good.
But you can't just. There's so many communities in Florida that are just cookie cutters. You never know when you leave one and enter another one. And then there are those communities that are preserving where they come from. Yeah. And that's the key. I mean, if you can preserve the history of your community, then you've done something. And I think it's important. I mean, right now, at my age, I'm trying to think of ways, and you and I talk about it all the time, of how we can, when I'm gone, how we can preserve what we've done so we can pass it on to more newcomers and to future generations, So, I'm hoping my son Jamie will take the lead on some of it, and he's learning it as we go. And I mean, I have it in my head, but it's hard to teach somebody that, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would success look like? What would legacy look like 10, 15 years from now?
A museum. I think a waterfront, a museum on the waterfront, at the waterfront. We've talked about it. Would be wonderful. I mean, to preserve all of this, because when you think about Amelia Island, Nassau County, but you think primarily about Amelia Island, what is the one common denominator that made Amelia Island so attractive to, under 8 flags? I mean, everybody wanted Amelia Island. Well, it's that natural deep water harbor. I mean, that was it. I mean, even the import, the export, the shipping, the shrimping industry, the paper mills. I mean, it all started there, and it still does to this day.
And there's no historical marker.
There's not a historical marker.
Maritime industry.
No. And it's funny you said that, because in Nassau County now there are 60 some odd historical markers.
Yep.
And there's not one to the shrimping industry, the birthplace of the shrimping industry. This is where it all starts.
There's the obelisk, but everyone I ask, almost 8 out of 10, they don't even see it.
They don't even know where it is.
It's a great little monument, and birthplace.
I did the dedication for that back in the 80s.
But we've talked to people who've lived here for years.
Had no idea it was even there. No idea at all.
And it's right behind where they put the Christmas tree.
It is.
Yeah.
It's right there.
And people don't even know it's there.
No. There's so much that not only needs to be done, there's so much that could be done, and it just takes somebody pushing it. And I hope, I've got enough years left in me that I can help make a difference and maybe get some of this done.
Yeah.
With your help.
So if we have newcomers or even people who've been here forever, all their life, and they don't want this history lost, and they want to come on the tour, they can find you where?
Just go to AmeliaIslandFootprints.com.
Okay.
And you can book right there online. You can go to the calendar and pick out the date that you want, the morning tour, the afternoon tour. If you want a lecture, if you want a presentation, we can do that too. If you have a group,
And that's been great for groups traveling in.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for local community groups and business organizations, things like that are looking for things to do and learn.
Yep.
So those presentations are great for that.
Oh yeah.
And then if we have local businesses who want to sponsor our series, they can reach out to you as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
Very good. Very good.
Just trying to have that open door to the past, and that's what it is. I mean, if everybody could just go to that, I liken it to walking down a hallway and just opening that history door and take a look at the past. It'll kind of help define where you are today. So, just everybody wants to look into the past. Everybody wants to. It's a time machine. I mean, it really is. I mean, we can't look into the future, but I do know this. If you don't know where you've come from, it's pretty hard to visualize where you're going without knowing the struggles and everything that went with it. How did I get here?
Right.